Hello, my friend, and welcome to the CEO Soapbox Podcast, episode number 21. I am your host, Nida Farzad, and this is where we have honest conversation about business, how to grow it better, how to lead it better, and stop making the whole bloody thing harder than it needs to be. And today I want to talk about something that catches a lot of good businesses out. From the outside, things can look like they're moving. The team is busy, the calendar is full, there's plenty happening. But inside the business, it can still feel heavier than it should. Not because your people don't care, not because the team isn't trying, but because movement and momentum are not the same thing. And once you understand that properly, you will start seeing why some businesses stay busy without actually getting easier to run. So let's get into it. One of the most useful shifts a leader can make is learning to spot the difference between activity and real progress, because they are not the same. A lot of businesses look productive on the surface. There are meetings, updates, projects in motion, messages flying around, people working hard. And from the outside, that can look like momentum. But a lot of time it isn't. It's chaos with a calendar. And chaos is expensive. If you listen to my last episode, you will find out how expensive chaos in business is. I've seen businesses where everyone is genuinely trying. No passengers, no one slacking off, no one sitting around doing bugger all. People care, they are committed, they are putting in the effort. And still, delivery slips, decisions drag, margins get squeezed, leaders get pulled into too much, and the whole business feels like it needs too much effort just to do normal shit. And that's the trap. When effort is high, people start assuming progress must be happening. They think we're all working hard, so surely we're moving forward. Maybe, but sometimes the hard work is the symptom, not the solution. Because a busy business, it's not actually a well-run one. A moving business is not automatically building momentum. And a hard-working team without real ownership will create drag faster than it creates progress. Now, this is usually does not show up as one big dramatic disaster. It shows up in those frustrating patterns that slowly become normal. The same issues keep coming up. Projects start with energy and finish with excuses. There's plenty of discussion, but not enough decision. People are doing work, but no one is fully owning the outcome. Leaders are still too involved in the basics because they don't trust things to move cleanly without them. So, what do you end up with? Handovers everywhere, updates everywhere, follow ups everywhere, but not enough actual accountability. Sales says one thing, operations service says another, project says another, marketing is busy, customer service is patching things up, finance is quietly watching margin get chipped away. And the CEO, founder, is left thinking, how are we this busy and still this inefficient? That's the right question, because usually the issue is not lack of effort. It's that too much effort is being burned inside a system with weak ownership, slow decisions, poor handoffs, and fuzzy priority. So yes, the team is active, but active doesn't mean aligned. Responsive doesn't mean effective. And movement doesn't mean the business is getting stronger. That's where the businesses get stuck. Not because the people are useless, not because they don't care, but because they've normalized a way of operating where motion looks close enough to progress that nobody stops to challenge it properly, even the owner. because activity can make a business look alive. Momentum is what actually makes it better and moves it forward. And once you see that, you start seeing how much lazy advice gets thrown at this problem. Because when a business feels overloaded, the default answer is usually, we just need more people. Did you just nod? You just nodded, didn't you? Okay, sometimes that's true. But plenty of businesses do not have a headcount problem. What they have is a clarity problem, an ownership problem, a prioritization problem, a decision-making problem. And throwing more people into the messy system does not clean it up. It usually just spreads the mess. More people to update, more handoffs, more confusion, more costs, more opportunities for things to get lost. That's not scale, that's strain pretending to be growth. And here's another thing people get wrong. They treat busyness as a proof of commitment. Now look, I love committed teams, but commitment without direction is just expensive effort for your business. You can have smart people, good people, hardworking, but still have a badly run business. Because the issue is not whether people care, right? It's whether the business knows how to turn effort into clean progress. And leadership teams get caught in this too. And I've seen owners, CEOs get caught into it too. They confuse being involved with being effective. They sit in too many meetings. They get pulled into too many details. They stay too central to too many decisions. They act like the backup plan for everything. And then they wonder why the team is dependent. Because that's what they've trained. You haven't built momentum. You've built escalation. People often think lots of communication means the business is collaborative. Not always. Sometimes it just means no one is clear enough. Sometimes over-communication is just under ownership in nicer clothes. If everybody needs to keep checking, aligning, circling back, looping in, and workshopping basic decisions, that's not healthy collaboration, my friend. That is uncertainty. A well-run business doesn't matter what size you are. Even if you're planning or if you're a startup, I want you to remember, a well-run business does not need constant noise to keep moving. What it needs, clarity, clear priorities, clear ownership, clear decisions, clear standards, clear consequences. Without that activity fills the gap. And this is not just frustrating. It's expensive for your business. It's expensive for your department. When activity happens without ownership, execution, my friend, slows right down. Work bounces between people. Things sit waiting. Issues gets revisited. The same conversations happen again and again and again. Nobody owns the whole result. So everyone stays busy managing their piece while the overall outcome drifts. And then margin starts leaking. Because we know, right? Rework costs money, delays cost money, poor handoffs cost money, internal confusion costs money, meetings costs money, slow decisions cost money, founder dependency costs money. A lot of businesses think they've got pricing issues when what they've really got is an execution issue. They think the market is squeezing them. Sometimes it is, don't get me wrong. Sometimes market does squeeze you. But sometimes the business is quietly chewing through margin all by itself because it takes too much effort to get simple things done properly. That's not a market problem. That's an operating problem in the business. And it doesn't stop at money. Trust me, it also kills trust. People stop trusting priorities because they keep changing. They stop trusting meetings because nothing useful comes out of it. They stop trusting leadership language because everything is urgent. They stop trusting the system because system creates too much friction. Then someone says, oh, hang on, we've got culture problem. Maybe. But a lot of times, what you've really got is a management problem being described with a culture language. Because good people get tired in badly run businesses, not because they are weak, no, because they can feel the difference between healthy pressure and bloody stupid pressure. Healthy pressure comes from ambition, standards, growth, real responsibility and accountability. Stupid pressure comes from avoidable chaos, weak ownership, poor structure, slow calls, constant work, lack of leadership, and people having to work around shit that should have been fixed upstream. And then there's a cost to the CEO, founder, MD. Because when the business is running on activity instead of momentum, you become the glue. You are the one. Keep clarifying, chasing, nudging, translating, escalating, rescuing, everything, trying everything together. That can make you feel useful. And I know you love that. But for a while, and that's a trap. Because if the business only moves cleanly when you're personally pushing it, you do not have a momentum in your business. You have dependence. And dependence, my friend, it's not scaling. That's leadership debt. And the reason this gets missed for so long is because false productivity has very, very conceiving optics. It looks like effort. It looks like commitment. It looks like people care. It looks like everyone is trying. And they probably are. That's what makes it tricky, right? The people are not the problem. The operating rhythm is, the ownership is, the decision-making is, the structure is. From the outside, a busy business can look impressive. From the inside, it feels heavy. That heaviness, my friend, is your clue. Because real momentum makes the business cleaner over time. It sharpens the execution, it reduces friction, it improves the confidence, it makes growth feel more controlled. False productivity does the opposite for you. It creates more follow-ups, more meetings, more interruptions, more dependency, more noise, more effort just to hold everything together. That is why business starts feeling harder as it grows. Not because growth itself is a problem, but because the way the business operates would not be possible to carry the growth cleanly. So here's the reframe for you. The goal is not to build a busy business. The goal is to build a business where effort turns into outcome without so much drag. That's the game. Not more movement, but I want you to reframe it to better movement. Not more communication, but to better ownership. Not more urgency, but better decisions. Not more pressure, but better operating discipline. A well-run business is not one where everyone is flat out all the time. Trust me, been doing this for 25 years. A well-run business, my friend, it's not the one where everyone is flat out all the time. It's one where people know what matters, who owns what good looks like, how decisions get made. That's what creates momentum. Momentum has direction. Momentum compounds. Momentum reduces friction. Momentum makes the business stronger as it moves. Motion without ownership just creates exhaustion with better branding. And this is where leaders need to be honest. You, my friend, as a CEO, as a founder, needs to be honest. Sometimes the business is not short on effort, it's short on clean execution. Because now you can actually fix something real. So if this is showing up in your business, here's where I start. Get brutally clear on ownership. Not who is involved, not who is contributing, not who is sitting in the meeting. Who owns the outcome? Because when ownership is vague, work expands. Not people, sorry about that. When ownership is vague, work expands. What I mean by that is more checking, more chasing, more coordinating, more talking, less doing and finishing. If multiple people own the same result, you usually don't have a shared ownership. You don't have shared ownership, you have diluted accountability issue. Then look at where decisions are too slow. Where are things getting revisited too often? Where are people waiting too long for approval? Where are leaders too involved or not involved early enough? Where does the business keep circling the same issue instead of making the call? Indecision creates hidden workload. People wait, speculate, that's a big one. Prepare for multiple scenarios, that's very dangerous. Do work around work, keep checking in. That's drag. A decent decision made in time is often far more valuable than the perfect decision made too late. So now we've done that. Then I want you to audit your meetings properly. I've done a whole episode on meeting. If you finish this, please go and listen to that one. So I absolutely want you to audit your meeting properly, not gently, properly, brutally. Which meetings produce decisions? Which meetings only produce updates? Which meeting exists because ownership is weak? Which meetings are covering for unresolved issues? Which ones could be replaced by a simple written or project update or an email? Which people are there because it feels politically safer, not because it is useful? I've seen that so many times, and it's a lot of businesses are over meeting because leadership has not built enough clarity into the system. Meetings should support execution, not compensate for messy management. Then look at rework and handoffs. Where does work keep coming back? This is the episode that I did before this, episode 20. If this is something this is the biggest thing. Handoff and rework is the biggest issue. So when you finish this, please go and listen to episode 20. So we want to look at a rework and handoffs. Where does work keep coming back? Where are teams cleaning up each other's mess? Where is downstream performance being damaged by upstream sloppiness? What I mean by team management. Where are people spending time fixing avoidable confusion? This is where your drag lives. Poor handoffs are one of the clearest signs that the business is full of activity but low on discipline. Then narrow the priority. A lot of businesses are overloaded because too many things are being treated as equally important. They are not. So ask, what actually matters right now? What is commercially important? What can wait? And what are we doing because it feels useful, not because it is useful? You do not create momentum by spreading effort thinly across everything. You create it by concentrating effort where it matters. And finally, please stop rewarding busyness. And this applies to you if you're a CEO, if you're a startup, please stop rewarding yourself with business. If you're leaders, if you've got a business and you got leaders, praise the people who are always slammed always rescuing, always everywhere, then the business learns to perform business. That becomes the standard. Instead, I want you to reward clear ownership, strong judgment, clean follow through, useful decisions, commercial discipline, less noise, and better execution. Then ask this uncomfortable question. What in this business, what in my business is only being held together by effort? Because if something only works because good people are overcompensating for it every day, then it doesn't really work. It is just being manually kept alive. That's not healthy. That's not a scalable business. And it's definitely not something to romanticize. So here's a big takeaway from this episode. Please remember, stop admiring movement and start asking whether the business is actually building momentum. Because if the place is busy but still feels heavy to you, the answer is probably not more activity. It's probably not another meeting, not another follow-up, not more founder involvement, not more CEO involvement, not your involvement, not more effort from already tired people. The better question is this: where is activity happening without ownership, clear decisions, and commercial direction? That's where the drag. And that's what needs fixing. Because movement is not momentum. Please understand, movement in your business, it's not momentum. And a hardworking team inside a messy system will still struggle to produce clean results and better outcome and a stronger business. If you want the business to feel stronger, clearer, and easier to run, stop rewarding noise and start tightening how the place actually operates. That's the work for you, my friend. At the end of the day, your business should not need this much motion just to prove its function. It should not need constant chasing, rescuing, clarifying, and over-communication just to get normal work done. That is not momentum, my friend. That is drag. Remember this. And the longer drag gets rewarded because it looks like effort, the more expensive, frustrating, and exhausting the business becomes. So, if this episode hit a nerve, good. Not because I want you to feeling bad about your business. That's not what I want. But because seeing it properly is the first step to fixing it properly. You work so hard for this business. And once you stop confusing business with progress, you can start building something far more useful that you love it. That's why you started it. A business that moves with more clarity, more ownership, better decisions, less friction, and a lot of less wasted effort. Thanks for joining me on the Soapbox today. It's always great to have you here. If this episode made you laugh, wince, not aggressively, I hope it did, or quietly think, yep, that's exactly what's going on, make sure you subscribe. And please share it with someone who probably need to hear it too. And if your business is growing, but behind the scenes still feels heavier, messier, or more reactive than it should, reach out to me, please, on LinkedIn, because this is real work, commercial work, leadership work, execution. And it's exactly the kind of work I help businesses fix. Wishing you an amazing week ahead. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, especially to yourself. Bye for now.